Hey, welcome to another episode of the Get More Students podcast. I'm your co-host, Alex Asher, CEO of LearnCube.
And I am Herbert Gozer, founder of herbertgozer.com.
And today we're actually going to have a very fun conversation, and we have somebody with us that I'll tell you about very shortly. But it is on how important is social media in marketing your education courses. So the reason that we wanted to talk about social media in particular is because it's a marketing channel that gets so much buzz, but actually very few education companies actually do a really good job, whether that be in tutoring or in language education. And one of the reasons that we really want to talk about, certainly from a LearnCube perspective, we help online language and tutoring businesses to grow with our virtual classroom and online school solution. And so with that, we have a lot of exposure and really want to help our clients. And this is one of the best ways that they can help themselves. And Herbert, I mean, this is a lot of your business.
Absolutely. I mean, we take over paid ad campaigns for language schools and education businesses. But, the foundations of a successful ad campaign is having a solid, social media strategy and organic traffic coming in. So this is why, social media is very important, especially these days, new audiences, new platforms coming up, and how to take advantage of them effectively.
And I think, who better to help us with that really than a marketing manager of a language school, right? So
exactly.
We love talking about marketing, but there's nothing quite like talking to somebody that's on the ground and actually started from the ground up with social media and is doing such a great job. So I have the absolute privilege of introducing Marielle Porte, who is joining us as the marketing manager of Speakeasy Barcelona, a language school based in Barcelona. So thanks so much for joining us, Marielle.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Great.
Now, we were going to have a conversation. Let's start just by setting the context about social media. It means a lot of different things to different people. But let's just start off with, why do we care about social media? And Herbert, do you want to kick us off with this?
Absolutely. It's one of the kind of first touch points you might have with a prospective student or a customer. It offers really a window into your company. And, first impressions count these days, especially online. So it is so important that your social media is on point, that you are providing the content, showing people kind of the insides of your language school and how that works in the student experiences, so that they stay on your Facebook profile, Instagram profile, or go to your website. So, everything is very visual these days with photos and videos, and that's why organic social media is becoming, or is very important.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that point, just in terms of it's a pulse, right, of your business. And it's also another shop front. So just as a website is a shop front, your social media presence is again a shop front. But actually, I like that point. It's not just a shop front in the front. It's actually behind the scenes a lot of the time.
Absolutely.
Marielle, what's your take on social media? Like, what's its purpose and how does it help?
I think I definitely agree with social media being a shop front, as you say, to, your products and what it's like, and, giving kind of an inside look at what's going on in your school. But not only that, I think a really important way to use social media is to also show what's happening, like on the business side, showing what's going on with the administration team and, and the students' lives themselves, and also the teachers. People want to know, when people are buying products, I think it's much more, they care more about like the actual things that are going on behind the scenes in a company, and that adds value to the product. So I think showing all sides of it and being totally transparent and kind of engaging in your customers in that way is a really important use for social media.
One of the things I'll bounce from with that, Marielle, was when I've looked at Speakeasy Barcelona, one of the things that strikes me is when I look at all of the imagery, particularly on your Instagram account, it's kind of like branding, right? It's all of those images, it's like 1,000 images are communicating your brand values, and almost your company culture, particularly if you took your point on this idea of like going behind the scenes, you're exposing, hey, this is our culture. And you can see all of these data points that all say the same thing. We're this kind of company and you're going to have this kind of experience.
Mm-hmm.
Is that your take on it?
That's definitely my take on it. And, you're just basically proving the same point on all different aspects of your company, and just making everything super visible, not only in the content that you post, but also the kinds of engagements that are public for other people to see. They see like what kind of customer service you give and that you do give personalized attention. And then, that's for like the new potential students, but also for the current students, it helps them to feel seen and to be part of the story that you're telling. So it's all just kind of like putting everything in front of the world to see, for your current students and potential students.
Definitely. I think a lot of, every language school says they have native speaking teachers and international students, but where are they? You don't see them, or they're hidden on like the back page of a website. But I know that Speakeasy does a fantastic job of showing classes, showing their students, being active inside and outside of the classroom and introducing the teachers.
One of the things I also wanted to, kind of bounce back on that, Marielle, was you kind of mentioned two different aspects of how social media can help. One is in terms of people that don't know you, giving them that, it's like a bridge of trust, right? It's saying, hey, these are a whole bunch of images that would be really hard for us to fake. It's really hard for us to fake this kind of, emotion that's coming out of our students. You can look at all of these images and they all tell you the same thing. You're going to have a great time. So it must actually speed up your sales cycle as well, because you don't have to convince as hard, and you don't have to use words. You're using images.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I think with, sorry to interrupt you at the end, but I think that, a lot of the question that people have with a course, especially a language course, if they haven't studied in a language school ever, or they haven't studied a language, outside of college or high school, what is it like, and it's really hard for them to imagine, and they don't want to think well, is this going to be like a high school class where, I'm sitting there in a desk by myself doing a workbook, it does speed up the process, and people know what they're getting, so their decision is already half cooked by the time that they've seen everything and reach out to us.
I love it. I hadn't really thought about that trust process until just now, but it just seems so powerful. If I have 1,000, if I look at just one Instagram account and I have 1,000 reference points of why I'm going to have a great time, that just must make it so much easier compared to if you even had a talk with somebody from Speakeasy. I'm going to be looking through everything that you say and be like, they're just saying that. I don't really believe I'm going to have a great time.
Sales pitch.
Visually, totally different story.
Yeah, definitely. And another tool that has worked well for us, not only for us to engage more with the students and know their stories, is if you've seen on our Instagram, we do a student of the week kind of thing where we actually, find students who want to share their background and their experience learning the language, and we use their images. So, we tag them on Instagram and we use their own images. And I think that comes across not only in, the images that we choose to post, but also that then it's basically a testimonial, and the potential students can go to their Instagram profile and, build the story even bigger, and it's more real that way.
Fantastic. There's nothing better than user-generated content, and it's free and it's much easier to create than doing it yourself.
Yeah, definitely. And that's why you need to have, somebody who's putting a dedicated effort into it, because that's how we reach out to these students. If you don't have a real conversation with them or have interacted on their accounts before, they're not going to be as willing to open up to you and give you this content. So it's something you have to work on. Mm-hmm.
And I really like how you talked about it, because it's not an accident. It's no accident that somebody's doing a testimonial for you every week. This is a system that doesn't feel like a system, and it's a favor that doesn't feel like a favor. It feels like a reward and a validation. That was the other thing that I thought you said really well before, Marielle, is you've got prospects that want trust, and you've got students that are with you that want validation that they made the right choice. And Student of the Week is a total validation that I'm in the right place.
Yeah, certainly. And, now we even have people asking us if they can be student of the week, and so that's a really important
the dream.
Connecting with your students on a consistent basis so they feel like you're friends, and then they want to appear there and they feel special, for being a part of it.
And you've normalized, right? You've normalized the idea of, telling a story about your experience, and you're not even asking for a testimonial. Just say, hey, look, this is this thing that we're already doing and all of these other people have done. It's nothing to be afraid of. All of these other people have had it's been a positive experience for everyone. This is not a punishment. This is just absolutely the opposite. It's like, I really like how you've put that together, Marielle. But you, when we were talking about this previously, and people might be listening, and I still think you're an expert, but you kind of, when we were talking about this before, are like, hey, I started with Speakeasy Barcelona, what, is it 4 years ago, Marielle?
Yes, 4 years ago. Mm-hmm.
And you've had to build up all these skills. And I think a lot of people listening might be like, oh, I can never do what, Marielle's done, but actually, you've got the story from start to finish.
Yeah, so I didn't actually study marketing specifically before I got into this. I started as a receptionist, just mostly because I knew that I really liked education. Education is just kind of like a nice field to work in, and I think it's a nice field to work in, especially for language schools, I have to say, because it's like happy people, young people who are excited to do stuff. You have a much higher chance of getting like people involved in the things that you're trying to do. So basically, we had been doing social media kind of as an aside. But I realized that like the more effort we put into it, the more of kind of like an ecosystem there is. And, you realize that like, of course it depends on the size of your school, but you really can connect with like a big percentage of, your students on a personal level. I just noticed that there was a really good energy and that it was much easier to create content and get ideas even from the students themselves. I don't consider myself like a trained expert in marketing, but I think it's just a matter of like getting really involved in your community and then seeing, how you can make content for, those people. Like what would they be interested in following on Instagram? Are they interested in learning stuff? Are they interested in seeing themselves? Are they interested in whatever it is, and that's kind of the direction you go in.
Yeah, and you've built up that expertise more so in terms of experience, right? You've been able to make, how often are you posting, Marielle?
We're posting pretty much every day. We have accounts on all the major social media platforms. Yeah. And we, but there's a lot of tools that help with that. We have, for example, Sprout Social, which is like a posting, I don't even know what it's called, a posting helper. Social media posting platform.
Yeah, social media scheduler tool,
Yeah, and like there's slightly different kinds of content that we post on the different platforms, but more or less we're posting similar things, or like, on two of the platforms we'll post a certain kind of article or video or album, and on the other kinds of platforms we don't. But you can use these tools to help you, and then, as I said, dedicating somebody for a specific amount of time every day to be managing, and also just like talking to people.
Yeah, it's not enough to post. When you post, people will hopefully comment, and you also need to interact with those people and make sure that you reply or comment, engage with them in a timely manner. I think a lot of people forget that as well.
Yeah, like a two-way platform rather than just a one-way broadcast.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. I'm kind of curious just on your starting story, because I think a lot of people might resonate with that, and it also may help people that are like, oh, I don't know if I could do that. We've all got to start somewhere. Tell me a little bit about maybe how you felt that you started your social media kind of journey, and then what you feel that you're doing differently now, and maybe what are the first steps that people would kind of start with?
So I would say I'm not even like a very like heavy social media user myself. A lot of it was like quite intuitive at the beginning. It's like, okay, what do I think I would see or I would want to see? And, since I was kind of in like the target audience of the customers that we were looking at, that worked. And, but yeah, there has been a lot of changes from the beginning, from when I started. I would say that I got much more organized with the tools, for example, and with the, kind of categorizing different things, because it's really easy to run out of ideas. So that was the first thing, was getting more organized with tools, and also like having a specific plan about the different like points that I wanted to touch on with the students and the things that I felt represent our product.
Right.
And, kind of like doing what you think people want to see, but also, from a sales perspective, you have to take that into consideration. So yeah, just writing that stuff down and thinking, what kind of post can I make that would feel natural, but would also convey this thing? Or like, how often does it look good to post about one of our courses versus posting about, interesting content that's actually like you're giving something to the community, whether it's humor or whether it's like language learning tools. Just kind of thinking about what you want to present to the community. And then based on that, you'll see people are responding so much more to these kinds of posts. So this is the this works, and so I'm going to post this a certain percentage while still lacing in my, like, this is a language school and you want to come here.
Sure.
Because, it's really easy to start posting like content that's highly shareable and, engaging, but then it's like, okay, wait, but we still want students.
Yeah, exactly.
And Herbert, I think that was a great tip, by the way. It's certainly one thing that's very pragmatic, just simply creating like a categorization and using that to then brainstorm on. So instead of trying to brainstorm about anything, you're brainstorming around a category. Herbert, tell me about your experience as well. Like, what have you noticed from other language schools when it comes to, what to post and maybe what's interesting?
Absolutely. I mean, it depends on the language school. I see, especially with a school like Speakeasy Barcelona. Barcelona is kind of, the one major attraction, and I assume that you sell the destination quite a bit. So, that would be very different to, say, an online language school, right? But I know that a lot of schools and, their social media marketing team, they, work in categories. And, they have a kind of a posting schedule, whether it be, on Monday, we do a student story. On Wednesday, we do something like activities or something around the school. And then on Friday, they do something more about learning, learning the language. And so by having those categories or these pillars, as they say, it's much easier to create content because I need for August, 4 of these, and 4 of these types of posts.
Exactly. And that's exactly how I got organized, and it takes much less time. Yeah, definitely. So then you have that all scheduled out, and then the only thing you have to worry about is engaging with, people on a day-to-day basis.
One of the things that strikes me that you do very well as well, Marielle, is it seems you collaborate as a team. So it's not just one person's job to help with social media. You kind of enroll the rest of the team in that same idea. So you're actually systemizing things by, hey, we know that we're going to have activities on these days. I'm assuming you might even ask the people that are running those activities. You're also responsible for at least capturing some images from that so that we can use it on social media. Is that how you approach it?
Yeah, exactly. So we do have an activities program as part of the perks of being a student at Speakeasy, and so we have the activities coordinator who is the guide on these trips. But I do tell her, I mean, she is responsible for getting pictures, and I do, she has she has like an integral role on telling the story, and, she knows the kinds of things that the students like doing and seeing, and she gets pictures of all the, fun social stuff that they're doing on activities, and she knows the students personally, so she also helps when it comes to the moment of tagging people in posts or, like she's a really big link between us and the students and the social media platforms. So, yeah, definitely. And then as far as the rest of the team goes, they all know like how important the social media marketing is for, the school. So, for example, the teachers, they always have to collaborate in a way whenever we do go in the classrooms and film a class. They have to ask the students if it's okay with them and, make it a positive experience for them. And so the fact that the teachers are in on it too makes it even more, it makes it less scary to students because, this is actually a problem that I had at the beginning because it is hard at the beginning. I will say that when your student body is not used to being filmed, being recorded, on a regular basis, it's kind of like, whoa, what are you going to do with that, Yeah,
because you've normalized it now, right? Which is why it's easier right now.
It's actually really incredible how quickly it happened because, we have students coming in and out weekly. And so if all of the students who have just been part of it and have seen it happening, continue to see it happen, all the new ones just see it as something regular. Right. And also the fact that they've seen it on our social media platforms. So, yeah, it was not easy at the beginning, and I had to do a lot of convincing, and I actually had to, I don't know, I had to deal a lot more with, do we make them sign photo release papers or not? But that's just something you just have to try until it becomes like a normal, part of the atmosphere.
Just have to start. Yeah, it's the hardest part, right? I remember a couple of years back when we were trying to get some student testimonial videos that it wasn't the easiest, but now it's super easy. So and great videos.
It seems like getting that habitual kind of process is so critical. Like without it being consistent, then you're having to start the wheel every time. Whereas it seems like, Maria, you've created a recurring system. So again, you just have to tap the wheel and it just goes by itself.
Yeah, definitely. It's just a matter of maintaining it. And as with everything, I guess the hard part is getting started. But yes, I mean, I think it's just a matter of really connecting with the community and like in a genuine way, and having somebody on your team that is kind of in their age range and, you know, their kind of circles, that makes it easier at least.
I think you said something really smart there as well. So, for example, I can imagine if it's top down, let's say the owner's like, yeah, we're going to do social media. And then, hey, teacher, find me 5 students and then send them to my office and I'll force them to do a testimonial. That's going to be a really bad experience. But if you're working, that's why you have to enroll the people that have already got trust with those students. If you were to start again, do you feel I think you were kind of almost touching on the strategy, which is you have to get the teachers who have the closest connection with the student to buy into the social media, idea, and then they are the ones that become the ambassadors. And really that eventually that has to be a non-negotiable for your teachers, because otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, that is challenging, especially when you go from like there's a lot of hesitancy when you go from like not doing it to, you know, like some teachers doing it. But in the end, I mean, it just depends on how you present stuff and how involved you keep them. You know, and like during the pandemic, for example, I wanted to make a video by recording a Zoom class, and people were like super hesitant about that, students. But, you know, with the teacher's help of her just being like, you know, this is just to help promote the students and it's good for the school, and her being excited about it, really, really changes the minds of the students. I mean, obviously you don't want your teachers to become like, you know, spokespeople for the marketing campaigns, because that can also be negative. But definitely just being like totally open and honest about it, and, you know, just mentioning it. It doesn't have to be anything like super elaborated. And when we do videos in the classes, like, there's no interruption. The teachers are just doing the class, like, and they may organize like a special activity, that may seem like more dynamic and be more interesting to see in a video, during that time that you're in there. So you really have to be connected to the teachers, and they have to know what you're trying to capture. Because if you have like a teacher sitting at a table and then they're doing like a quiz all silently, like obviously that's part of class, but that's not something that looks good in a video.
No, definitely not.
I think you just said 2 things that are really brilliant. The first one is that with the teacher, you're not asking them to do anything staged. That's the whole point, right? So, hey, teacher, you do exactly what you're normally doing. I don't want you to do anything extra. I'm just asking you to do what you're doing, and we're just going to capture that memory. And then the second thing that you said that was really smart to me was this idea of, you know, you set them up for a successful video or visual, right? Which is, you don't get them doing the middle of a test. Now while you've got, you know, everyone's looking down at their paper looking stressed, go around and take some pictures. That's not going to be a successful campaign. You're saying, hey, why don't you do this activity? And I guess you might even want to get them to do that dynamic activity regularly, because then you have a regular environment for you to be able to get new content. Would that be a fair summary of your approach that you may or may not have thought to look at? It seems very smart.
Yes, that's definitely it. It's getting the teachers involved, you know, talking to them about what they're going to do. And then they also feel more confident about you filming, because, you know, it's not everybody's super comfortable knowing that they're being recorded. So just, you know, getting everyone involved and preparing them for it, and, you know, even making suggestions like, you know, it works really well whenever you do a game where you have a physical object. Do you have a game that you could do during class tomorrow? Or when, you know, when can that happen? So that it's all just very like to the point, and you don't have like, you know, you're not recording for no reason for too long, making people uncomfortable. So yeah, I would say just preparing everyone for it and explaining to them why and what looks good and why.
That's great.
Great tips.
why don't we just add a little bit of contrast by understanding what definitely doesn't work, and then maybe we'll have maybe one more point, and then finish up for this podcast. So let's start off with just what doesn't work, Herbert? Because let's start with you.
Right. Well, I always see a lot of language schools Instagram feeds, filled with text, and I know what they mean, and I know what they're trying to put across. They want to educate, prospective students and their followers about word of the day or tips to learn this grammar point or whatever. But it's just so monotone. And again, people want to see behind the scenes. Who are the teachers? Who's the owner? How do the courses work? What am I going to get out of it? So using lots of text, stock photos, as we mentioned before, and as I always say, and making it just boring and generic. That's a killer.
Yeah, I wonder, Marielle, you probably have some insights into this, but it definitely seems, kind of going back to the point you made earlier on this, if it doesn't communicate your brand in that, then it probably isn't worth posting. So just like if you're using a grammar point, Herbert, if it's a generic grammar point, then it conveys nothing about your brand and who you are, and therefore why they should choose you. Whereas I'm assuming, Marielle, every post communicates something about your culture, your brand, and how you do things. Tell me about but let's go back again to the question, which is what doesn't work, and then we can go what does.
Okay. Sure. So as the point I wanted to make about what Herbert said about what doesn't work with text and things is that it really depends on the platform and what part of the platform you're using. Like Instagram has gotten a lot more sophisticated, and it has like a lot of different categories within itself. And for example, like text looks really bad just on your Instagram feed. The Instagram feed is like a beautiful album, and that the text is in the comments. But like what people want to look at on the feed are beautiful images. So that's what you should put there. And for example, but for a language school, like another point that I'd like to touch on our social media anyways is a bit of language learning resources, which would be, like grammar, quizzes, whatever. Recently, what we've been doing, for example, with Instagram that works really well for engagement is to integrate like the fact that we're language learning and provide some resources too, is to do quizzes, like language quizzes on the stories, but not on the posts.
Fantastic.
Like stories are something where you do see that and where people are looking for interacting or, doing something slightly, involved in that part of the platform. So if you do still want to be able to provide resources, there's ways, for example, that you'd be much more likely to see like a grammar resource on Facebook that will then be reposted in like language learning groups. And this kind of thing has more to do with like what platform you're using, in my experience. So yes, just don't, use the platform for what it's meant for. So the problem, I think, is whenever you see these things like in a place that doesn't feel right. But yes, other than that, just as we mentioned before, stock photos. I feel like it's better like not to post anything at all. Because it's obvious. It almost has the opposite effect, maybe that's more personal than anything else, but it's like, well, you're trying to sell me something, like, what are you hiding?
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
So you're conveying a mask.
Yeah, definitely.
Interesting. Well, let's ask any kind of last points, but I think I wouldn't mind maybe just finishing up really about kind of what you're talking about, that you seem to understand very early on how important real images were rather than, say, professional and stage photos. You just mentioned it there. Why did you feel that that was true from the beginning, and how much do you think that's true now? Like, I think a lot of people still hear like, but it's so much easier just to use a stock photo. All I need to do is just get one picture and then I'm done, right? But tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I guess it's just like fully intuitive in a way because of my own experience. I mean, in any, with any kind of product that you're buying, like if you go to a restaurant, if and at the front of the desk they have plastic food, like you're gonna be like, oh, that's super, like, yeah, that's unclassy. I don't know. It's like, what am I going to get? If they made the decision to put that in front of me, like, what kind of food am I being served? Like, so it
That's
just really.
That's a good analogy.
That's a great one. I have to use it.
But I know it's a lot easier, and at the beginning when you need something there, I guess it is better. You need something, like that's what it's for when you don't have your own resources. But I definitely think it's like a really, really great investment to dedicate some time and resources to getting real imagery, and that is going to be like reflected on the whole ecosystem of the company.
And Herbert, what would you say is your parting comment in terms of, and maybe focus on how you can enroll people into this and generate that user-based content?
Right. I mean, I think Marielle told the story of Speakeasy so well. Is you've got to start. It'll be a painful start, but you've got to make it a habit and be consistent in terms of getting everyone involved in this process of creating authentic images and videos. And it kind of sells itself then. It's that snowball effect. So once you have it, once students are giving you really good photos and testimonials, then it just keeps them coming. Students will now want to be the student of the week. I think that there's nothing better than that when they're volunteering to be on your social media. And that's a testament to just getting through that painful starting process.
Yeah, well done, Marielle. It's been such a pleasure to have you join us on the podcast today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been really great.
Yeah, and for those of you listening in, I really hope you've enjoyed today. I've learned so much from Marielle and really kind of crystallized some of the ideas that I hadn't. You just had some brilliant analogies, and I think it's really crystallized what can work and how to start, which is great. We've got some really steps. And so thanks again for listening in. Every week we aim to give insights, inspiration, and motivation, and we aim to give you a new episode every week. You've heard about how important it is with social media in marketing your language courses. And for now, though, subscribe to our podcast, and we'll see you next week.
Catch you in the next one.
Thank you.